everyone, so today I wanted to film a video on how I repair cracked and chipped doll necks. This was actually requested, but sometimes when you guys request certain tutorials, I don't have the doll on hand to show the repair or the particular trick that I want to show, so I have to wait. So today I have a Fashion Jeans Barbie. I got her in a lot at the flea market, and she sadly had a fat head, and that was because her neck was chipped. So you can see there's a pretty big hole. There's actually some of her neck inside the hole. And ordinarily, for dolls that have pretty substantial chipping, I will find a body donor. So basically a doll that has really cut hair or ruined face paint, something that's really unsalvageable, or to save it, it would cost a lot of money or something. That's usually my first recommended option, is see if you can get a body donor. I always go for dolls, like I said, that aren't able to be saved. I won't take apart a good doll that still has life in her for another doll. But I don't have a lot of 80s bodies. These are pretty specific, especially Fashion Jeans Barbie. She's really pale and she's got these little tiny toes, and I like the country makes to match their heads and stuff. So I'm going to try to repair this, and I'm going to show you what I use. And this is also great for dolls like Skipper, where all the bodies are kind of fragile on the 1987 molds, and they tend to chip and break anyways from the weight of Skipper's oversized head, or for a doll that just has a really unique body with special mechanisms and stuff. I really recommend doing this. I've also used this method on my Beauty Secrets Barbie, who has little postable hands. Her hand actually broke off and it was like chipped, so I used this method to seal up around that, so even though she can't bend her arm anymore, at least she has a hand. So let's get to it. So this is my workstation on my desk here. So obviously you're going to need the body, and in order to reconnect the head to the body, you're going to need the neck knob. So there's different ones. Some of them have prongs, some of them have really long prongs. This is an older doll, so she just has their standard ball. And the ball is the part that's going to go in the head. And then for the actual filler, you can use different things. Some people use resins, but I use acrylic liquid and acrylic powder. So these are actually made for acrylic nails, so they dry clear. And that's what I like about it. It dries clear, so I can use it on all different kinds of skin tones, and it basically just dries transparent. I get these at Walmart, I believe, for like $8. It comes in a little kit with like a little brush and everything, and it's basically hardens to be this really hard, clear, strong material, and it does the trick just fine. But like I said, you can use resins or something along those lines. This is just what I use. But warning, it does really smell. It's a very strong scent, and you'll definitely want to make sure the room you're working in is very well ventilated. It might make you feel kind of sick because it's really gross, but it works really well. It does the trick. And if you mess up, this does come off with nail polish remover, because that's how they take it off at salons. And then I like to apply it and mix it using toothpicks. And then I have little pointed Q-tips just for fixing any mistakes. And you're going to want something to mix the like liquid and powder together, and because that's how it activates when you mix the two together. So I use this like little piece of clear packaging that I actually got with the nail kit, because if you try to use it in a bowl, it's just a really pain to clean up. So I just recommend using something that's plastic, so it's not porous, it won't like seep through. And I also have some baby oil, because I need to get the neck knob back into Barbie's head before I do this. That's the main thing, is you want to try to have the ball in the head before you fix it, but sometimes if the crack is really large, that's not going to work out. You'll need to fill in the crack and put the patch on, and then put the ball in. So first things first, I'm gonna try to like get her ball back in, and I like to use baby oil because it lubricates the ball. And there she goes. You'll see that it had cracked a little bit more. That's because it's really fragile. An alternate technique you could use is you could heat up water in the microwave for a few minutes until it's like a little bit bubbling, and then just stick the actual neck portion in the water so it softens up the plastic so you can pop the joint back on. So the key to this is using pretty equal parts of powder and of liquid, and it's a pretty big hole, so I'm going to need quite a bit. This is going to smell really bad. I'm dreading this. And you basically want it to be a kind of gummy-like texture. You don't want it to be too runny or too thick. So you want it to be pliable and almost like a sticky kind of like goopy consistency, but not runny and not so thick that it's dry. So then what I like to do is I like to get some on my Q-tip and then place it over the hole. See, it's starting to get tacky, and that's what we want. So we want to shape it. And I'll actually like use my fingers to kind of pat it down. And then I'll just use my Q-tips here to clean it up. So I like to try to make it really smooth where it meets the plastic, so it's not like a very obvious bump. And you want to make sure that it's not stuck to the neck joint. So I'm just getting my Q-tip under the neck joint and taking off some of the excess. And you want to make sure you can still wiggle the joint. You don't want to fuse it into place. Which is why sometimes if the crack is too big, you'll need to actually let it dry before you can add more, so you'll need to do like small patches and keep adding to them. And sometimes if the cracks are like big enough, I like to actually make a really liquidy version of this so I can like just lightly coat around the cracks, but hers aren't too bad. So I'm going to let this dry. And you want to let it dry for a little while. It'll be very hard. You'll notice that it will be a little bit less jelly looking. And that's when you can reattach the head and kind of smooth out any places that you don't like. Okay, so we're back. It's actually the next day. You don't have to wait that long for this to dry, but I like to wait at least an hour. And if you can hear it, that is now hard. And her neck joint can still move around. That's important. It's got a lot of mobility. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my nail file here and I'm just going to really lightly smooth it out in any places, being careful not to hit the plastic. Now I'm lucky because where Barbie's neck broke, it's in the back of her neck, so you're not going to see this at all because her hair will be covering it. But if it's in the front and it's a very large patch and you manage to actually get it to stay, you can always use a little bit of paint after that matches the skin tone and fix it up. I have a picture of an Ariel doll that I needed to do that on because she had a very special body and I couldn't get her a donor. So if you check out my Dolly Transformations album, I have a picture of my 2010 Bath Beauty Ariel. Before I put her head on too, I just want to say that if you have a doll that maybe doesn't even have a neck crack, that has a really loose head that kind of spins around and lolls forward and backward a lot, there is a way that you can tighten it. I basically take fishing line and I tie a little knot around this part of her neck and I wrap the fishing line around until it has like a little thick base and the ball doesn't move as much. Then I tie another knot, trim it down, pull it tight with pliers, and put the head on. And that little like buffer of fishing line helps the neck joint not move around as much, which therefore makes the head tighter. There's a lot of other things you can use to wrap around the neck. You can use hair elastic, you can use ribbon. I have a tutorial for that on my Flickr as well, so you can check that out. So now I'm going to reattach Barbie's head. So because her neck has some little cracks in it, and because of how severely it was broken, I don't want to just cram her head back on. So I heated up this little bowl of water in the microwave. It's really hot, and I'm just going to put the lower part of her head in the water. It's okay if a little bit of her hair gets wet, but hot water is going to soften up her vinyl and make it easier to put her head back on. So there we have Miss Barbie. Her hair is a little damp, but you can barely see just the very bottom of my patch. So her head can move, it has full rotation, and she's looking good. So this is what Barbie looks like with her head completely back on and all dressed up. I thought I'd show a quick after shot of what she looked like completely done. That's what the little patch looks like on the back, but underneath her hair it's barely visible, especially with her fuzzy shirt. So I hope this tutorial helped you guys out, and I will leave a link below to my written out tutorial on Flickr. And until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.